Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ namasāmi. As the practice of Dhamma develops, we find that there are connections and relationships between different virtues, different Dhammas that perhaps were not clear to us before. And one of the most important of these connections is that between wisdom and compassion. We may say indeed that without a clear understanding of the nature of dukkha, that compassion that arises in our hearts is only ever a superficial or incomplete kind of compassion. The more clearly we see the nature of dukkha, the more we understand the all-embracing nature of this term, then the deeper the emotional response to that manifests as compassion. The relationship is such that we can judge whether we understand what dukkha means by seeing to what extent compassion is manifesting in our hearts. We can judge the authenticity of the compassion that we experience by the extent to which we understand or penetrate nature of dukkha. It's the ability to empathize. What is that? It's the ability to recognize dukkha, to be able to put ourselves in others' shoes, to imagine, to resonate with the dukkha of others. And when we understand dukkha of others, when we're able to feel it, then compassion arises. In every aspect of our practice, progress is made when there is this harmony between the cognitive and the affective aspects. That's putting it in rather technical terms. Let's say between head and heart, between the brain and the heart, if we wish to say that. And we tend to fall out of that balance quite easily, depending on our particular character. Some people tend very, very cerebral, cognitive approach. It's kind of intelligent, analytical approach, which you say often can't see the forest for the trees. It's the brain that can work everything out and put things in categories, but actually not get the point. And I won't dignify this with calling it insight so much as just I had a thought, a consideration that it's say for so many people, or for everyone, and most of the time, that what we consider to be a desire or quest for truth is really a craving for a coherent explanation, and so often it's just that sense of completion and contentment when something has been explained, and we're not always so choosy about our explanations as long as they hang together and are reasonably coherent, and then we can sort of put that matter out of the way. And so much of what is considered a quest for truth is a quest for a web of interconnected and coherent explanations of things. This is the brain's craving, the cognitive tanha, the craving for words, explanations, to be able to put to think that by explaining the mechanism of something that we really understand it, because we can put things into groups of 6, groups of 7, whatever, and categorize things and give them even Pali terms that we really understand what they are. But of course we can't dispense with that side of things altogether. It's part of it. The other side, the emotional side, is that sense of living, experiencing things. This is the non-thinking mind, and both these two sides, if they're out of kilter, they become exaggerated. Then there are dangers with the emotional side. It just becomes too much guided by this rush of feeling and inspiration. We become inspiration junkies and craving the next inspiring talk, the next inspiring book, the next inspiring meeting. We get a high from that kind of feeling, and this is the emotional kind of craving. But there has to be both of those in harmony, in conjunction, for a penetration of the truth. Both sides tend to look on the other rather than as partners, but as adversaries. So when the emotional sattva kind of side finds the intellectual side nitpicking, dry, beside the point, and the intellectual side finds that the faith-based emotional things are kind of messy, irrelevant. It's a fear of kind of the swamp of emotions, as it were, and both sides tend to judge the other side by their own criteria. So, say when people are like chanting, so the intellectual looks at chanting and says, "Yeah, waste of time," and often they're just chanting Pali words, don't even know what they mean. Waste of time. It's not the real practice, and a lot of kind of intellectual arguments why faith-based practice like chanting is not really where it's at. Whereas in the faith side, saying oh, sort of reading, studying all these suttas, you're just getting more ideas and more concepts and more, just make you think more and more, and actually delude yourself into thinking that you understand more than you actually do, get kind of proud and arrogant, and so there's always this tendency to take your own side, to interpret things or to dismiss things which don't follow one's own template or one's own particular take on things. So it's not that there is a kind of an intellectual person and an emotional person. All of us who have these qualities of different strengths and ratios within us. So there's a kind of needs to be a respect for both sides, and to look at your own heart and see whether there is some deficiency in one side or another, and kind of indication of deficiency is if you have an unreasonably strong kind of aversion to one or other kind of practice. So, if you have immediately have a lot of reasons why faith-based practices are not the real thing, then there's probably an imbalance there. If you have a really strong kind of a reaction against reading and studying and thinking things through analytically, then there's probably an imbalance there. If there's a sense of being threatened by the other side, or sort of instinctive pushing it away. Of course, the emotional side pushes the intellect away when it doesn't make any excuses. It says, I don't like that. And then the intellectual side pushes the emotional side away. I don't like that because. And that's the difference between them. It's the emotional side. I don't like that because I don't like it, and that's good enough for emotion. Emotion just likes or doesn't like, but the intellectual side's a bit bashful about that and feels a little bit superior, so it casts its net around for a few good reasons, or something in the suttas, or something some Ajahn or other said as a backing. What I'm trying to propose here is that is the view that there must be an integration of these two sides. If the intellectual side, the analytical side, the dry, it's even called the dry vipassana side, is it can become sort of lacking in life and vitality, and lacking in piti and joy. The emotional side can be too subject to ups and downs without the analytical backing. To go back to where I started the talk, I think this is seen for me very clearly in this whole question of wisdom and compassion. These two cardinal virtues which become more and more mature, more and more beautifully, nobly expressed as practice progresses, and can be taken as marks of spiritual progress. And I think sometimes this is a rather more skillful way, perhaps, of looking at things than going to the traditional technical vocabulary of stream entry and all those things that we were talking about earlier this afternoon. Rather than saying, have I reached stream entry yet? Am I this? Am I that? Or is he this? Or is he that? I'm just looking at the extent there is the penetration of the nature of dukkha, To what extent do we understand dukkha? Dukkha, the Theravada koan, if you like, the one word, the thing on which everything rests. If you penetrate the nature, or the meaning of that single word, and you know everything that you need to know in life. And it's because we don't know what dukkha means that we still experience dukkha. This is kind of paradox of it. So once you understand, you comprehend dukkha, then there is the abandonment of its cause, there is the realization of its cessation. You've fulfilled the path. And the way, and the Buddha again and again brought the huge number of his teachings down to these very simple principles, these famous sayings. Formerly, as now monks, all I've ever taught is dukkha and the end of dukkha. This is why are we practicing? What do we say, Lord, when people ask us, what are you practicing for? What's the goal of practice? What's the aim? The aim is for the comprehension of dukkha, the comprehension of and the penetration of the Four Noble Truths. These Four Noble Truths all coming from this first Noble Truth of dukkha. So if we start to practice in this way, in looking at Four Noble Truths, particularly at dukkha, we see the intellectual and the empathetic side, the emotional side together. So we look at the dukkha of the physical body, and so we can do this in an analytical way, and we can go through all the various illnesses that the body is heir to. We can start off with the going down from the top of the head through the diseases, brain diseases, diseases of the scalp, dandruff, sort of very kind of basic, mundane kind of things like dandruff, onto brain tumours, diseases of the eyes, diseases of the nose, sinuses, things that go wrong with your ears, the inner deafness, diseases of the mouth, the tongue, teeth. Just mentally go through your body and just organ by organ, part by part. Just bring to mind all the possible kind of illnesses that can occur, and then go through the different kinds of diseases, different kinds of cancer, heart disease, AIDS, infectious diseases, degenerative diseases, hereditary diseases, so on and so forth. So this is a way of using the discursive thought, using wisdom faculty to understand dukkha, and then using the emotional faculty. Just if you know people who have these kinds of illnesses, you've had them before, and you imagine that, you bring to mind images of people who've had these kinds of suffering, and then from clear penetration of it, then compassion arises. Compassion arises from seeing the dukkha, the all-encompassing dukkha of having a human body. So the human body makes its way from first pain of being in the womb, and in this very graphic descriptions of, in the Visuddhimagga, for instance, of what the fetus feels like when the mother eats very cold foods or very spicy foods, and sharp movements and so on, and the pain of emerging through the birth canal, and so on and so forth. So it's not trying to create some kind of negative image and hypnotize ourselves or persuade ourselves that everything's terrible, but it's opening our eyes up to facts of experience and things that we don't like to look at. And the measure to which we do that in a skillful way is the measure to which the results are wholesome, and the results of the collection of dukkha, the perception of dukkha is compassion. A compassion for ourselves, compassion for others. There's this wish to do what we can to free ourselves from dukkha and free others from dukkha as best we can. So the more we understand dukkha, there's compassion for ourselves, and compassion for ourselves leads to effort to free ourselves from this samsaric realm, and to do what we can to help others to be free from this samsaric realm. And it may be helping others by being an example. It may involve talking and teaching. It may or may not. It's the attitude of seeking to dispel and to remove, reduce suffering wherever we find it. And this is a noble goal in life. And the more we understand dukkha, then I say the more profound compassion comes. We see that merely helping on the physical realm is never going to end dukkha. It's something which should be done, has to be done, and should be greatly praised when it's done. But it's not at the same time ever going to get to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the attachment to the five khandhas. This is where all the various kinds of dukkha in the world spring from. So our particular role as bhikkhus and as monastics is we're the ones who work on the roots of the problem, and the lay Buddhists and the Buddhist society are the ones who are working on the branches and the expressions of dukkha, physical, mental dukkha. But the monks are the ones, or monastics, we're looking at the very roots of it in the human mind, the way the mind creates dukkha through its attachment to the body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, emotions, sense experience as being self, and seeing the suffering inherent in that, understanding it cognitively, wisely, but also experiencing that fully and being able to empathize and realize what dukkha means as an experience, not just as an idea. So our tendency is we don't want to experience dukkha, and this is because we don't want to experience dukkha, and we're always trying to get away from dukkha. Then we increase the amount of dukkha. And again, one of Ajahn Chah's key teachings, I think, is that the only way that you can transcend dukkha is by facing dukkha. And the reason that you can face dukkha is because in the end your mind is bigger than dukkha is. It's this, although we feel we completely sucked up into a black cloud or a abyss of dukkha, in fact dukkha is always arising and passing away within consciousness. That's why you can face up to it, because it's not bigger than you are, and you have the ability, you have the resources to withstand the onslaught of dukkha, and just steadfastly looking at it and and that's how you how you go beyond dukkha, because you finally you've been running away from it for so long, and just sort of dig your heels in and say no further. You stick your flag in the ground and you say, this is where I make my stand. And you look at this, and it's just this. It's just this body and this mind. Being willing to be present with everything, the pleasant and the unpleasant, and being willing to look at the things you don't want to look at, and the important precondition for this is not coming from ideas of I should be this way, I should have these thoughts, I shouldn't have those thoughts, I'm bad if I have those thoughts. When you have some special idea of who you should be, or how you should think, or what kind of feelings you should have, then you've already lost it. When we can stay just with very simple, extremely simple phrase, Anya Kondanya's insight, whatever is of the nature to arise is of the nature to cease. That's solid gold kind of phrase. It's a diamond sword as well. It's both golden and diamond. You don't have to work out why is it like this, what is that. You don't have to go into sort of excruciating detail. But whatever it is, physical, mental, it is all of the nature to arise, the nature to cease, and that's as much as you need to know. See, it's just that. It's just the way it is right now, because the causes and conditions that have led up to it, and the causes and conditions which are existing in the present moment. It's like this, and it's changing. It's the nature to arise, it's the nature to cease. Seeing that and feeling it, it's just the very presence of uncertainty, instability, being willing to be with what's uncertain. It's how difficult that is, isn't it? That's the search for certainty. I want to know. Give me something to hold on to. I want to have some kind of everything set out in black and white, and so I know where I stand. But it's precisely because we don't know where we stand that as monks we spend so much of our time sitting down, and we're looking and trying to be with this instability instead of dismissing it or trying to get away from it or finding some particular mental state, some particular experience, or some kind of island in the midst of this instability. Yes, this is the unstable. This is what dukkha means. Dukkha is this radical, chronic instability. Never rises, passes away. It's not self. So making this effort and intending, constant intention to look, to see, to experience, not to shut down on areas you find frightening, but gradually sort of working around them, a little bit nimbly at first, like if you've got to take a splinter out, it's kind of hurts, and you just go very, very kind of nimbly go around the edge, and go very slowly, very patiently work at it. And we've got these kind of thorns and splinters there, and just kind of keep working, but it's the intention is there, the intention to work, to do the work. And the word kamatan Kamma means work, Thana means basis. It's the basis of the work. So your meditation object is your basis, your principle by which you do the work that you have to do. And it's work that only you can do, nobody can do for you. So aspiring to clarity, aspiring to wakefulness, aspiring to presence, not going into this kind of grasping at things, pushing away things, or shutting things down. This is one aspect of moha, is this sort of desensitization. You're just sort of shutting things down, becoming numb towards things. This is a sort of very deeply conditioned response to certain aspects of experience. If we don't want to grasp onto it and make it ours, just kind of protect our ignorance by this kind of numb area where we can just feel nothing about certain things, and then perhaps even go so far as to confuse that with detachment. Being able to distinguish between numbness and detachment is a very important quality. So these are just a few thoughts and reflections that I'd like to offer you this evening.